Every October 14th, for 17 years, Susan Anderson walked the Maplewood Park Trail where her daughter Chloe disappeared. She'd start at the parking lot, follow the winding path through the trees, and stop at mile marker 3. The last place anyone knew Chloe had been, she'd leave flowers, say a prayer, and wonder what happened to her 25-year-old daughter. Often, Park Ranger Marcus Webb would be there. He'd stand respectfully at a distance, sometimes approaching to offer comfort. "I still think about her every day," he'd say. "I wish I could have saved her." Susan found solace in his dedication, in knowing someone else remembered Chloe. She had no idea that she was seeking comfort from the man who'd taken her daughter's life, that the ranger who stood beside her in grief was the same monster who'd created it. In 2023, when DNA evidence finally identified Marcus as Chloe's killer, Susan realized she'd been mourning alongside her daughter's murderer for nearly 2 decades. On the morning of September 12, 2023, the trail maintenance crew at Maplewood Park began their routine work. This park, in suburban Redmond, Washington, was the heart of the local community. 3 miles of paved trails wound through old oak and pine trees. Families would picnic on weekends. Children would run around the playgrounds. Morning joggers would fill the paths. At sunrise, team leader, 42-year-old Tom Hendricks, was clearing the trails between the trees with his 5-person crew that morning. The recent storm had broken many branches, and the paths were blocked. At 9:47 a.m., 28-year-old crew member Daniel Ortiz was working about 50 meters off the main trail, among dense shrubs. Ortiz saw something white in the soil while lifting a large branch. He looked more closely at what he first thought was a stone or root. He bent down and gently scraped the soil with his gloved hand. More whiteness appeared, a long cylindrical shape. And then he realized this was a bone, a large bone. Could it be human? His heart raced. "Tom," he shouted, "get over here, now!" Hendricks came running. His face paled when he looked where Ortiz was pointing. "Nobody touch anything," he said. "I'm calling 911. By noon, that section of the park was cordoned off with yellow police tape. Detective Amanda Foster from the King County Sheriff's Department arrived at the scene. Foster was 44 years old, had 18 years of experience, and was known in the region for solving cold cases. With her were the forensic team and forensic anthropologist, Dr. Kevin Park. Dr. Park began excavating carefully. The soil was moist and dark, organic matter that had been there for years. The bones slowly emerged, a skull, ribs, long bones, a complete skeleton. "Female," said Dr. Park, making his initial examination. Mid-20s, probably 23 to 27, height approximately 5 feet 6 inches. Distinct trauma to the skull, blunt force from behind. Cause of death was probably this. Time buried, at least 15 years, probably more. Foster looked around at the surroundings. The park looked beautiful, peaceful. Birds were singing, leaves rustling. But beneath this beauty, a body had lain for 17 years. "Was there a missing case in this park?" Foster asked. Hendricks nodded. "Chloe Anderson. Disappeared in 2006. Everyone knows. There's a memorial service every year." Foster's eyes lit up. 2006. That matched the age of the bones. Chloe Marie Anderson was born on March 3, 1981 in Seattle. Her parents, Susan and Richard Anderson, were a middle-class family. Richard was an accountant. Susan was an elementary school teacher. Chloe was their only child, and they raised her with great love. Chloe was a creative child. From a young age, she loved to draw. Walls, notebooks, everywhere was her canvas. She excelled in art classes during high school and decided to go to art school when she graduated. She studied graphic design at the University of Washington. She was an excellent student, both talented and hardworking. When she graduated in 2003, She found a job at a small advertising agency in Seattle. After working there for 2 years, she moved to Redmond in 2005. She wanted a quieter life, a safer neighborhood. She rented a small apartment in Redmond. It was a 5-minute walk to Maplewood Park, and Chloe loved this. She loved nature, walking, the outdoors. From the day she moved, she made it a habit to walk in the park every evening. In fall 2006, Chloe was 25 years old. Her work was going well. She was gaining new clients. She didn't have a serious boyfriend, but she was happy. She lived in a small apartment with her roommate, Amy Chen, enjoying life. October 14th, 2006 was a Saturday. Autumn in Washington was at its most beautiful, trees blazing in shades of red, orange, and yellow. The weather was cool but sunny. Chloe had worked at home that day, designing a logo for a client. At 7:20 p.m., she decided to go for her usual walk. "I'm heading out," she told Amy, "going to do a loop around the park." Amy smiled. "Be careful, it gets dark fast now." Chloe put on her running shoes, put in her earbuds, and put her phone in her pocket. She walked out the door and headed toward Maplewood Park. She arrived at the park at 7:25 p.m. There were a few cars in the parking lot, other walkers, joggers. Chloe stepped onto the familiar trail and began walking. She was listening to music through her earbuds, enjoying the beauty of the sunset. At 7:47 p.m., she texted Amy, "Beautiful sunset tonight, home in 20. Those were her last words. As Chloe approached mile marker 3, the trail passed through a densely wooded area. The sun had set and twilight was falling. The light was fading, but Chloe knew this path very well. She'd walked it every day for 2 years. Just then, a figure emerged from among the trees. He was wearing a park ranger uniform, Marcus Webb. "Good evening," said Marcus, smiling. "You're late tonight." Chloe took out her earbuds. "Oh, hello, Marcus. Yes, my work took long today." Marcus nodded. "Be careful. It gets dark fast. Also, there's a problem over there. Can I show you?" A tree fell down. Might have blocked the trail. Chloe hesitated, but she knew Marcus. He was the park ranger, a reliable person, always helpful. "Okay, show me." Marcus directed her away from the main trail, toward the wooded area. Chloe took a few steps and then Marcus attacked from behind. Chloe tried to scream, but Marcus covered her mouth with his hand. She struggled, scratched, kicked, but Marcus was stronger. He threw her to the ground and began strangling her. Chloe's eyes opened wide with fear. She tried to breathe, but Marcus's hands were squeezing her throat. Minutes later, Chloe lay motionless. Marcus stood up, out of breath. He looked around. No one was there. The park was silent. He took Chloe's phone and earbuds and left them back on the trail. He wanted to create an abduction scenario. Then he dragged Chloe's body deep into the trees. He placed it in a shallow grave he dug beforehand and covered it with soil. When his work was done, Marcus straightened his uniform and left the park, as if nothing had happened. Amy Chen began to worry when Chloe hadn't returned home by 8:30 p.m. She texted. No reply. She called. The phone was ringing, but Chloe wasn't answering. At 9 p.m., she called again. Still no answer. At 10 p.m., Amy called 911. Police took a missing person report and immediately sent a patrol to Maplewood Park. At 10:45 p.m., they found Chloe's phone and earbuds on the trail near mile marker 3. The phone was working, battery full. The earbuds were on the ground as if dropped. But Chloe was gone. A search operation began immediately. King County Sheriff's Department, volunteers, K-9 units. Everyone was mobilized. The park was searched inch by inch. Helicopters scanned from above. No trace was found. Park Ranger Marcus Webb was at the center of the search efforts. He knew the park best, every trail, every corner, every hidden area. He directed volunteers, drew maps, worked day and night. "This girl disappeared in my park," Marcus said at the press conference. "I feel responsible. I won't stop until we find her." Susan and Richard Anderson came to Redmond to search for their daughter. Marcus met them and expressed deep sorrow. "I'm so sorry," said Marcus. "Chloe would go for walks every evening. I knew her. She always smiled, said hello. I'll do everything I can to find her." Susan took Marcus's hand. "Thank you. I know you're helping." Days passed, weeks passed. There was no trace of Chloe. Police developed theories. She might have been abducted by a stranger, might have been taken by a car, but there was no evidence. Security cameras around the park showed no suspicious vehicles. The investigation slowed. The case went cold. Marcus Webb continued working as park ranger. After Chloe's disappearance, he launched a campaign to increase the park's safety. More lighting, more patrols, emergency phones. The community saw him as a hero. In 2010, Marcus was selected as Employee of the Year by King County. In 2015, he received the Community Hero Award. Local newspapers featured him as Guardian of the Park. And every year on October 14th, a memorial service was held for Chloe Anderson. Marcus would always attend, standing respectfully, sometimes giving a speech. "We'll never forget Chloe," he'd say. "She was part of this park. We lost her, but her memory lives on." Susan Anderson would come to the ceremony every year. She knew Marcus, trusted him. Sometimes she'd talk with him, ask questions about Chloe. "Do you remember anything from that night?" Susan would ask. Marcus would shake his head sadly. "I wish I remembered. I wish I'd seen something. I still blame myself." Susan would touch his shoulder. "It's not your fault, Marcus. You did everything you could." For 17 years this continued. When the bones were found in September 2023, Detective Foster immediately pulled the Chloe Anderson file. DNA comparison was done. Susan and Richard Anderson were still alive, both in their mid-70s. They provided a DNA reference sample. A week later, the result came. The bones belonged to Chloe Marie Anderson. Susan collapsed when she received the news. For 17 years, she'd hoped, thought maybe Chloe could be alive. Now the truth was cruelly before her. Her daughter was dead, and all these years had lain in the park under the soil. But the investigation wasn't over. While examining the bones, Dr. Park found something else. Fabric fibers trapped under Chloe's fingernails, and foreign DNA Chloe had fought and taken a piece of her killer. A DNA profile was extracted and sent to the criminal database. No match. The killer hadn't been caught before Foster began working with genetic genealogy specialist Dr. Rachel Kim. The DNA profile was uploaded to public databases. 4 weeks later, a match came. Distant cousin Dr. Kim began building the family tree. It took 6 weeks. In November 2023, a name emerged: Marcus David Webb. Foster was shocked when she saw the name, the park ranger, the man who searched for Chloe, the community hero. But science doesn't lie. The DNA evidence was certain. The DNA extracted from Chloe's fingernails belonged to Marcus Webb Foster, investigated Marcus's background. Born in 1975, raised in Seattle, finished high school, didn't go to college, worked various jobs, construction, landscaping, security, started as a seasonal worker at Maplewood Park in 2001, became head ranger in 2005, never married, lived alone in a small house near the park. No criminal record, no financial problems. On the surface, a completely normal life. But Foster dug deeper. She spoke with Marcus's former co-workers. One remembered, Marcus was always a bit odd, especially around young women. He'd watch them. He had an unsettling gaze, but he never did anything, just watched. Another former employee. Marcus loved the park very much, but sometimes he'd wander around the park alone at night, We didn't know what he was doing. Foster reread Marcus's 2006 statement. Everything seemed consistent. He knew Chloe was patrolling the park that night, hadn't seen anything. But now, DNA evidence told a different story. November 15th, 2023, 6 a.m. Foster arrived at Marcus Webb's house with a SWAT team. The house was near the park, on a quiet street. Single story, well-maintained, normal-looking. They knocked on the door. Marcus opened it in his pajamas. He was 48 years old. His hair had grayed, but he was still in shape. "Marcus Webb," said Foster, "you're under arrest in connection with the murder of Chloe Anderson." Marcus's face froze for a moment. His eyes opened wide with fear. Then his shoulders dropped and he bowed his head. 17 years, he whispered. "I carried it for 17 years. At the station, Marcus was read his rights. He requested an attorney, but after meeting with the attorney, he said he wanted to confess. The formal interrogation began. Foster turned on the recorder. "Tell us what happened, Mr. Webb." Marcus took a deep breath. His eyes looked far away. "I was watching Chloe for months. Every evening at the same time, she'd walk the same path. She was beautiful, full of life. I became obsessed with her. Every night I'd wait for her. What happened on October 14th, 2006? That night, I saw her. She was walking on the trail. With her earbuds, I was waiting among the trees. I approached her, made up an excuse. Fallen tree, trail blocked. She trusted me. I was the park ranger. Why wouldn't she trust?" Marcus paused, his face contorted with pain. "I took her to the wooded area, and then I attacked. She fought. She scratched. But I was stronger. I strangled her." "What did you do then?" "I buried her body. I dug the spot beforehand. It was planned. I left her phone and earbuds on the trail to make it look like she'd been abducted. Then I went home. The next day, I joined the search. I searched for my own victim." Foster looked at Marcus. "How did you hide it for 17 years? Marcus laughed bitterly. "In plain sight. I was the park ranger, the community hero. Who would suspect? I comforted the family, attended memorial services. Every year, I held Susan Anderson's hand and said, 'I'm so sorry.' And every night, I passed near where Chloe was buried. Why did you do this?" Marcus was silent for a long time. "I don't know. I really don't know. Something dark inside me. I couldn't control it. Then after I killed her, guilt ate me. But I couldn't confess. I was scared. And as years passed, hiding became easier." The confession was complete. When the news spread, Redmond was shocked. The park ranger, the community hero, had been a killer for 17 years. People couldn't believe it. When Susan Anderson received the news, she couldn't understand at first. Marcus? The man who searched for Chloe? The man who stood beside her every year? Her daughter's killer? She gave a press statement, her voice trembling. "For 17 years I trusted that man. I sought comfort. And he had killed my daughter. He stood beside me, watched my pain, and he was the one who'd created that pain. This betrayal is indescribable." The trial began in February 2024. Marcus Webb was charged with first-degree murder and concealing a body, DNA evidence, confession. Everything was clear. The jury delivered its verdict, guilty. The judge announced the sentence, life in prison, no possibility of parole. Marcus Webb was 48 years old. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. At the sentencing hearing, Susan Anderson spoke. "My daughter was 25 years old, talented, beautiful, full of life. Marcus Webb took her from me, but he didn't just take her. For 17 years, he lied to me. He looked me in the face and said, 'I'm so sorry.' He held my hand. He wiped my tears. And all that time, he was my daughter's killer. This isn't just murder. This is prolonged, calculated torture. The judge spoke harshly when announcing the decision. Mr. Webb, you are the lowest kind of killer. You violated the trust your community placed in you in the worst possible way. In the park, you swore to protect. You killed an innocent woman, and then for 17 years, you fed on her family's pain. Society must be protected from you forever. Marcus bowed his head and said nothing. Maplewood Park changed after the incident. Marcus Webb's name was erased from all honor lists. The 2015 Community Hero Award was revoked. A permanent memorial was built for Chloe Anderson in the park, a bronze plaque at mile marker 3 on the trail. Chloe Marie Anderson, 1981 to 2006. Her life was stolen, but her memory will live forever. Be careful even in places you trust. Susan Anderson no longer comes to the memorial service every year. I can't set foot in that park again, she said. It's a graveyard to me now. And the Redmond community learned a painful lesson. Sometimes the greatest danger is hidden in the person we trust most: uniforms, badges, community awards. These can hide masks. True safety depends not just on appearances, but on vigilance. When Washington's autumn leaves fall each year, Maplewood Park's trees rustle, and that rustling whispers Chloe's story. The story of how trust can turn to betrayal, of evil hiding in plain sight, and of justice that finally comes. If this story moved you, please subscribe and hit the like button. Every subscription helps us continue investigating cold cases that families are still waiting to solve. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and which unsolved case you'd like us to cover next.